In 2005, two brothers hit the road to chase demons and fight monsters. You know, like you do. After 15 years, they made television history and built a community of dedicated and lasting fans.
Sure did.
I'm Rob Benedict, and I played God, a.k.a. Chuck Shirley.
Yeah, you are, and yeah, you did. And I'm Richard Speight Jr., and I played the Archangel Gabriel, a.k.a. the Trickster, a.k.a. Loki. I also had the privilege of directing a bunch of episodes of the show.
Have a few more AKAs, why don't you? Jeez.
A.k.a. you're a jerk.
Though we've been involved with the series for years and multiple seasons, we never sat down and watched the entire show.
Oh, that's not true anymore. Now we're deep into it. We are going episode by episode and diving in with the folks who made it to bring you an insider's point of view and some great behind-the-scenes stories from the writers, producers, crew, and actors. And you're getting our pure, honest, unfettered reviews.
And along the road, let me tell you, we're becoming fans.
Buddy, we are super fans.
We've heard you saying it for years, and we finally get what all the excitement's about. This show holds up after all this time and deserves to be watched and rewatched.
We will be hitting on some spoilers, so consider yourself warned. And if you have any angry emails you want to send, please direct them to Babo.
Thank you for joining our journey and listening to Supernatural Then and Now. Hello there, my name is Rob Benedict.
And I am Richard Speight Jr.
And we're talking about Season 4, Episode 18, Monster at the End of This Book.
Oh, yeah, we are. Oh, yes, we are. We are
Yes,
talking
we are.
about that episode. That is the episode we're going to talk
We're
about.
talking about.
Yeah.
It's great to be here. This summary of the review of the episode was recorded in front of a live virtual audience listening all along. And I'm just so glad our Patreon supporters are part of this.
Yeah, me too.
We'll be answering their questions about the episode afterwards, after we run through the episode. And you too can be a part of this fun, so please consider subscribing.
Yeah, join us on Patreon for all things Rob and Rich and Supernatural, like this very experience of doing a live stream where you too are part of the podcast. You too are involved in the entertainment factor that we bring every week as a part of Supernatural Then and Now.
Yes, like what we're doing right now.
This is what we're doing right now.
You can be a part of this.
Exactly.
Okay, so now's the portion of the episode I like to call the summary.
Yep, I like to call it the same. We're very similar in that regard.
Now, normally I read them,
right?
But because this episode is the first episode my character's in, did we want to do it different? How do you?
Yeah,
what do you think?
we can mix up. Why don't you let me give it a shot? Like I know we don't do it that way, but let me give it a shot and let's just see. Well, let's see how it goes. See if I can.
Okay.
I'm up to your standards. All right. So the monster at the end of this book, I got it right here.
All right. Don't forget.
Having read the book's title, Grover is horrified to learn that there's a monster at the end of the book. No. He immediately begs the reader not to finish the book so as to avoid encountering the monster. As the book continues, Grover constructs a series of obstacles. This is great, too, if you haven't seen this part of the show. Grover constructs a series of obstacles in hopes of preventing the reader from reading further.
Okay.
But none of them work. I assume there's a Sam and Dean element to that. None of them work, mostly because they are merely illustrations, not actual obstacles. And I guess that's sort of the supernatural part of it. They're not real, right? They're fabricated.
Right. But that's not, that's a different summary.
Or so you think. No, wait till I get to the end here, because this is really, no offense here, buddy, but I'm driving, okay?
Okay, got it.
Near the end of the book, Grover, and I didn't watch the episode, but I assume you play Grover, makes one last frantic plea for readers not to turn to the final page. But dude, and I swear I did not see this coming.
No.
When he does turn the final page, and again, I guess Sam and Dean must have a hand in this and probably some creepy, alternate being somewhere else.
Right.
Boom, it's Grover himself at the end of the book.
The monster. Grover's, yeah.
Yeah, Grover's the monster.
It's funny. So Sam and Dean not mentioned in that. It's interesting.
I think it's understood. I mean, I just Googled it, but I think it's understood that they are very, very much a part of this. And because it mentions illustrations, and that's very supernatural and sort of its energy. And
not really, but okay.
And then I guess Grover laughs. I assume some kind of maniacal laugh, and says that he knew it all along. But as the viewer, we can actually recognize that he's a little bit embarrassed about this whole series of events. So
Right.
let's dive into the interview. When you got cast as Grover, did you know you'd be wearing a blue suit the whole time covered in fur?
Look, I don't want to throw water on your well-constructed fire, but I that's not the episode we're talking about. That's a book, a children's book that the title of which this episode borrowed from, but that's not actually the episode from the series Supernatural, which we do a rewatch podcast of. Different.
Okay. In my defense, Steve Hine didn't clarify there was a different. All he said was this is the episode we're talking about. So
yeah, it's definitely Steve's fault. Definitely Steve's
right?
fault. But
classic Hine.
Yeah. No, there's an episode. If you want, I could tell you what it's about because obviously you don't.
Okay,
you
fine.
know,
I guess
you've got a thing against.
You do your version. We'll see which is more apropos.
Okay, all right. So for some reason in this summary, Steve has everything that my character did very small in italics and in parentheses.
I assume it's just to test the strength of your progressive lenses.
That's right. So here I have in very small print, episode opens with a man being startled awake by visions.
I don't remember that.
Sam and Dean are questioning a comic shop worker about a haunting. The worker believes the brothers are cosplaying or LARPing as characters from the book series Supernatural.
I remember that.
The books present the boys' real lives and adventures as fiction.
Yeah.
The boys are stunned. They track down the publisher, who reveals the source of the books. From further investigation, the boys discover that Lilith is set to return and visit Tham, and that she and Sam will share a night of passion, in quotes.
But if it's Lilith, isn't it Pathin?
It's Pathin. And then I've got in very small print, Chuck is writing his next book and is shocked to be visited by two of his characters. He reveals that he has visions and that Lilith will be visiting Sam and they will share a night of passion.
Pathin.
So Sam feels he's ready to confront Lilith, and Dean thinks they should do everything in their power to avoid her and what was prophesized.
So Dean's kind of C-blocking Sam and Lilith, right? I mean, that's kind of what this,
right.
I mean.
He's L-blocking, but yeah.
L-blocking?
Lilith.
Okay, that's not.
No, how about this? How about this? He's thee-blocking.
Thee-blocking. Yeah, thanks. Of course he is.
So yeah, he even places hex bags around the hotel room to hide them from Lilith's magic. However, the foretold events keep happening as predicted by Chuck, the character that I haven't met.
Chuck?
Yeah.
Is Chuck your nickname for Grover?
No, Chuck is the character that I play in Supernatural. Castiel appears and tells Dean that the books and prophecies will one day be known as the Winchester Gospels, and that Chuck is a prophet of the Lord. Castiel tells Dean, this is in small print, that Chuck is a prophet and he's actually protected by an archangel. Dean arrives at the brothers' motel room to discover that Sam has burned the hex bags.
And I remember specifically in this scene, Dean looks at Sam and goes, "What the hex?" Do you remember that? It was a great moment. Really funny.
That was a great, yeah. Did you actually watch the episode?
What?
Did you watch the episode or no? Not so much. Yeah.
I read the book.
You read the book.
I knew that Grover.
Right.
Yeah,
you knew.
Come on, man.
Yeah. Okay. So you knew that Grover's the monster at the end. Dean arrives at the So Dean arrives at the brothers' motel room to discover that Sam has burned the hex bags. What the hex? Dean storms out in frustration. In a moment of desperation, he prays for help, and Castiel appears. Castiel reveals to Dean how to stop Lilith by forcing an archangel to appear. Archangels are the most fearsome wrath in heaven, he says. Dean makes preparations to summon an angel. Now I've got in small print, Dean heads to Chuck's house and threatens him to come to the motel to confront Lilith so that an archangel can be summoned.
Because we know that Lilith won't like wrath.
No.
Lilith and wrath. That's no good.
No, not good. Back at the motel room, Lilith appears to Sam now as an adult woman. She retrieves Ruby's dagger and breaks some traps Sam has set out for her. Lilith tells Sam if she stops breaking the 66 seals, stop the apocalypse.
Thick seal.
Lilith tells Sam if she stops breaking the 66 seals, stops the apocalypse, sparing humanity if Sam and Dean will die. So she just wants them to die to stop these things. Sam reluctantly agrees. Lilith tells him they'll need to make love to seal the deal. How many times have you heard that one?
Boy, how many times have I used that one?
Never. Yeah. Lilith lays on the bed in a double cross. Sam approaches her and tries to use Ruby's knife to stab Lilith, but she overpowers him and holds the knife to his throat. Suddenly, Dean arrives. with Chuck. I don't know why I didn't completely cutting me out of the summary. Dean arrives and summons an archangel the way that Castiel instructed him to.
Right.
Actually, Dean and Chuck arrives, and Chuck declares, "I am the prophet Chuck." The room vibrates.
Dean say that?
No, I say it.
Oh, okay.
The room vibrates like there's an earthquake. In retreat, Lilith expels herself from her host body and escapes. Later, Sam and Dean discuss what happened. Sam never considered the deal, believing she would have found a way around it. Dean believes self-sacrifice is the way to go to save the world. Dean privately fears Sam would choose revenge over sacrifice.
Oh, man.
In a final scene, the angel Zechariah stalls further prophecies from being revealed to Sam and Dean. Actually, Zechariah appears to Chuck, who has had another vision about the apocalypse, and he tells Chuck he's forbidden to tell Sam and Dean, and he should, quote, do what he always does, right.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure Zechariah is saying that to an empty room. Isn't that like a monologue?
He's saying it's saying to me. He's saying it to
Grover?
me. There's a lot of great stuff in there that we'd missed that Steve cut out, but I was expecting
Zechariah, good to see you. Do not finish this book.
Is that Cookie Monster or Yoda?
It's Grover.
Oh, Grover. Sorry.
Cookie Monster. C is for Cookie. And Yoda is Grover is at the end of the book. Grover is.
There you go. There you go.
Thank you.
There you go.
Well, let's dive into what we think of this episode.
Yeah.
Rob, I mean, it's near and dear to your heart. I almost think you're like the Clarence Thomas of this episode. You should recuse yourself. You shouldn't really even be a part of this discussion because you're in the episode. It's what launched you in the Supernatural family. It put you on the map for the Supernatural fandom. It's what gave you that signature robe. It's like you've hitched your wagon to this character in so many ways that I almost feel like you shouldn't get a vote, and yet you do get a vote, which really reveals flaws in the voting system we have here at Supernatural Then and Now HQ. But we're not going to rewrite the bylaws today. We're going to plow forward. We'll make changes for future podcasts. So as it is, how do you rank and rate and review this episode? Before you do that, let me acknowledge this segment simply by saying that it's time for RRR Rob and Rich Review. Robbie?
I think it's a great episode. Look, I aside from me being in it, I always thought it was a really clever idea for the writers to sort of voice themselves through a character and be able to. I love the meta qualities of that character and what it brings in, and it just really works with what's going on in the plot right now. I also think Kurt Fuller's amazing. I think Catherine Buckner is amazing. It's a great episode for both Sam and Dean, I think. And yeah, I just think it's an all around a really clever episode. Yeah. And Misha, I even feel like Castiel is starting to change a little bit, and, he's actually helping the boys now. The way he says, like, I can't tell you what to do, but if you were to do this, that might help. You know what I mean? He's giving them hints and kind of being on their side. Isn't it funny? Like when you go back and look at this episode now, knowing what we know, it's really interesting to sort of, there's just a lot going on here with the fact that Chuck becomes God, but even more than that, like there's just, it's interesting doing this rewatch up until now. I know so much more than I did when I actually shot this episode,
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, decades more. I think it's also interesting how chock full of big deal characters it is. Obviously, we get to know Chuck later better, but Lilith, the Catherine Beckner version, which is just one of my favorites, fantastic.
Zachariah.
Kurt Fuller is the fabulous Zachariah reappearing, and he's so great. Misha Collins, who wasn't necessarily in every episode back then, great. So it's a really cool episode, chock full of fan favorites.
Yeah, and I didn't even realize it at the time. I had no idea. Except I knew Misha was relatively new because we talked about it while we were shooting it. But it was. It feels like a kind of a special episode.
Yeah. So where are you in a facial hair perspective? Where are you in this episode?
Well, I want to know a little bit more like what you. So
okay, can I dive in? I mean, I think it's great. Like you got a iconic episode that, I mean, gosh, as many conventions that we've done, how many times have we seen clips from this episode I know you say you don't answer a lot of questions about it, but certainly we see that image of Chuck, the classic berobed image of Chuck, kind of torn between what he's inspired to do and now realizing the blast radius of what he's doing and how it is foretelling the lives of these guys. And it's just a clever episode. It balances humor and drama really well. It moves the story forward, the grand mythology story, while also sort of introducing us to other characters or other character. And that's going to be sort of ensconced in the pantheon of great supernatural characters going forward. And again, like I said, Catherine Beckner, I think she's so good as Lilith. I think Kurt Fuller is so great on anything he ever does, so great as Zechariah. And Misha's, great in sort of the early years of formulating who Castiel is, and the darkness that Castiel carries during those early years is great. And Sam and Dean sort of in this meta space of doing what they do really well, balancing that humor of like, what are you talking about? LARP? Huh? All of that stuff is so well done and executed. Really well directed episode, really cleverly written episode, and really well performed. I think it is a just solid episode.
I love all the stuff that they do with like reading the book and then it's actually happening.
Yeah, it's so great. Like that scene with the lady, they have to give out all the facts to prove that they are big fans of the show, their own birthday and show their tattoos.
Yeah.
I love what we don't see is her basically pulling down her pants or whatever to show her tattoo because it's off screen. But you see them react like, oh, hi.
Yeah, some great stuff.
It's great.
And I'd forgotten that the episode begins with me having the vision. Like the whole thing is kind of coming from this character.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Anyway, okay, time for beards. Rich, you want to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. For many reasons that I just listed, including how big an impact this episode had on future storylines and shows, I have to give this one a Chris Stapleton. It's got to get the full Stapleton in this one.
I know that wasn't easy for you.
I didn't like saying it. Easy. I actually got a letter from the Stapleton people asking that I not use his name in association with this
with me
episode. So I'm putting myself up for a lawsuit by doing this. But
I know you were dreading this day where we had to talk about.
No, you're crushing it, dude. You're great in this episode. You do that thing you do really well, which is balance humor and drama. It's really well done. Really engaging character. That last scene with Zechariah is great. You just feel terrible for that guy, and as you turn around, like, what do I do? And his last line to you is just really great.
Yeah. That's great. He's that was fun to do with him.
And you got to work with everybody. I mean, like I did as I watched this. It's like, wow, Rob got to work with so many great people.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. So, I don't give this often. I'm going to give a very special version of a Kenny Loggins. I'm going to give it the Footloose.
Oh, wow.
The Footloose. Just specifically.
And let that sit in.
Kenny Loggins Footloose. It was Kenny Loggins' shining moment. And so I feel like it's a special beard. The Footloose. It's not the last time I'll give the Footloose. There are a couple episodes I can think that I might throw up the Footloose, but not all my episodes. Just saying.
I think if we were going to rank the best episode ever of Supernatural, it would have to be measured by Chris Stapleton singing Footloose. If we ever have, if he could just do that for us and we have that as a reference, you know what I mean? I would.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Yeah. Maybe it's the French mistake. I don't know. We'll have to see when we get there.
We'll have to see, or who's to say? But there it is. There's our review. And
there you go.
Today, Robbie, we have the pleasure of reuniting you, the guest star, and the director of the episode. This is like an episode of This Is Your Life, Rob Benedict, where we brought in one person that you've worked with in your life, a very important person, because if he dropped the ball, we might never have seen you on the show again. You know what I mean? Monster at the End of this book was directed by Mike Rohl, a veteran TV director and producer who has worked on Eureka, Smallville, Supernatural, Terminator, The Sarah Connor Chronicles, Andromeda, Kyle XY, and Reaper. Recent works include Netflix's Princess Switch and its sequels. He directed 10 episodes of Supernatural. That's not nothing. Plus, the episode featured the amazing talents of our very own Ron Bartlett. Sorry, buddy. Oh, it's a doozy.
Do you need help?
Are we going to the original? Like, is this? There's a Yiddish or there's a root here. I'm not seeing.
Yeah, there's a Yiddish. There's a Yiddish root.
Is it Yiddish?
Yeah.
Krab. So it's wait. Okay, Robert. Wait.
Yeah.
Plus, the episode featured the amazing talents of our very own Rob Benedict. Huh?
Good. Good. You did
His
it.
long and distinguished career, and I do mean long, features appearances in such sassy works as Tequila Body Shots,
Well.
Smut,
Okay.
Sex and Death 101,
Well.
Group Sex.
Okay. You're just highlighting the.
Another project entitled Sexy Daddy.
All right. Well, that's
which is also his online name. And of course, who can think of Rob without thinking of the title Masters of Sex?
Okay. That's a real short list of just the things I did that have the word sex in them.
Sassy sex. The question we get a lot is, did Rob do anything that didn't involve sassy sex? And the answer we're discovering here today is no.
Well, actually, there's a few things that don't.
Not
that,
on
but
this
that's fine.
list. According to what I see before me, it's all sassy sex.
Well, okay.
And now we're getting Mike Rohl together with his sassy, sexy, guest sexy, star sexy, Rob Benedict sexy.
I think that's the key. Is if you put sex before it, then you know how to say my name.
Sexy.
Well done. That was good stuff.
Here's Mike Rohl.
Hey,
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 we're here.
hey, Mike.
Hey,
Hi.
Mike.
Thanks for coming back, man.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to see you guys. And I watched the episode again last night, and it reminded me how much I love Supernatural. One of
Good.
my favorite shows I've ever done. So this is a treat.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it when people come on and say that, which actually does happen. People come on and say that frequently because it's, I guess, it leaves a fond series of memories for those who are, invested. And you did 10 episodes, so you were, a mainstay of that show for a period of time.
Yeah, it was like 6 seasons. I think season 2 to season 7.
It's amazing.
And one of the, like I said, best windows of directing I've ever had. I was doing Smallville at the same time, so I was flipping it back and forth. I think we might have talked about that last time. So it was a pretty busy CW kind of time of my life.
It's a lot of hot people. Encountering a lot of hot, tall people.
Triangular of beauty, as Greg Beeman used to call it. Yeah.
Well, listen, we're going to dive into this episode. Obviously, this is a legendary episode for many reasons. Number one, it introduces a character that became a fan favorite for years to come. Even a character that ended up becoming paramount in the storylines of the latter seasons and the final episodes of the show. So this is planting the seed for that in a pretty epic way. And, this is a great reunion for you and Rob, once again, face to face here on the Zoom, reuniting for this grand conversation about Rob's first ever episode on the show. So here's what I want to know. Rob Benedict gets cast in this role. How does that play out? Were you in the room when he read? Give me what you remember of tracking Rob down for this role.
Well, I remember the process. I mean, on Supernatural, it's Eric and the gang basically in Los Angeles that really do all the the searching and looking for the most appropriate person. So I hear it about it sort of on the edges and stuff like that. And then by the time I already kick in, the process is already completed, and you get to sort of meet the character, the actor, and get to know him and stuff. So I came to it kind of like as part of the whole process starting. So it was actually quite quick. It was on the run, pretty much.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so Rob, you read for the show in Los Angeles, California, and there was no dumb question, man. I'm just rewinding our own careers back then. Obviously, it's filmed. Do you get those tapes sent to you, Mike? Are you watching physical videotapes of the actors' auditions, or at that point, Rob had already been cast?
I think Rob had already been cast, and the casting I took part in mostly were the smaller parts, some of the support roles and stuff, especially with Vancouver actors. I'd be the one that would go into casting and just sort of be the director there, and then give my opinion on who I think might be most appropriate. Send it up the food chain, and then usually it's a process of discussing and coming up with a cast. But no, Rob was an important pick.
Okay, so we're kind of splitting this interview between both of you. So Rob, my question to you is, what was your first meeting with Mike like when you first arrived and were doing your thing?
I probably just met you on set, my first day on set. I remember that my band had played a couple gigs the weekend before, and my voice was kind of hoarse. But the very first thing that we shot was the first when the guys show up at my door.
Yeah,
and I was supposed to the character probably hadn't talked to people in a while, so it made sense that my voice was a little bit like this. Yeah. I remember that about my first day, but that's probably when we first met, right?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah. That's usually how it works out, on television series.
Yeah.
It's like, hi, how are you? Okay, let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Because the audition process for me was just was going into a room, and I think Eric was there, and and read for me. It was just the one read, and it's kind of next thing you know, you're reading the script on the plane on the way up there and trying to catch up.
So here's a question. So if Rob, you'd already been cast, right? So you had a sense of this character from reading the material at the audition, like whatever you prepared. Mike, you're coming at this with your mind around the material from a directing standpoint, but you obviously have an idea of what you think this is going to be. How on it was Rob's interpretation, or different? I mean, not better or worse, but like how was his interpretation of the character differing from how you saw it, and how much of that were you able to harness and use to your benefit?
I mean, for me, it could have gone in multiple directions. Like I said, we never had a chance to have a rehearsal or an audition, so I relied a lot on the idea of Rob got cast for a reason, and Eric saw something special and stuff. So coming into it, I know that was probably already loaded up. So my job was to really sort of just see what Rob would bring to the scenes. And once you get the boys mixed in, you just sort of see what that chemistry is like. And right away, I knew that Rob's choices were really good, because there was a kind of a very funny sort of insecurity about the guy. Who's a very somewhat successful author, a little bit of underground books, but there was this vulnerability to him and this uncertainty that was very charming. And so it was something you needed to latch onto right away. And the exciting part for me too was that this was a brand new character. I had no idea what this character was going to turn into. Right. It just grew. Right. But the charm was immediate, and the sort of connection with the boys seemed really natural. And so the lesson you learn on that show, or on any show really, is if there's a chemistry there, just get out of the way and capture as much of it as you can. And then I love the comedy element of it. So I have a comedy background from working in nightclubs and doing improv and all that kind of stuff. So when I'm in a group like that, I like to kind of take part on the edges. I'm not doing the gig, I'm not doing the stuff, but I love making the suggestions and letting the actors find those comedy moments inside the mystery. And you guys were naturals, really, really good. So
I want to remember working with you too, is that, I might have an idea like, ooh, what if I I'm clutching a drink in this scene, or whatever it is. And you were always you always yes-anded my ideas. You know what I mean? You're always like, yes, great. I love that. Do that and make it work in this, in the limitations that we've got here. And I remember you were very collaborative that way.
That's the thing. Yes, and is a good way to put it. That's definitely a thing to do. And and what's pretty cool is that those characters, it's a status thing too. They have sort of higher statuses, and then a status amongst each other. And in comes this super smart, intelligent character who's completely low status. Right. And it's great. It's a great contrast.
Right. Yeah. And they're so much bigger than me too. That was always fun to play that.
Physically too. There's some shots there where there's the triangle, the tower of humanity, and then Chuck in the middle, right?
I know.
Totally.
The point of the triangle is hilarious.
Yeah.
I can almost go for anybody. They're giants.
I specifically remember that scene where Jensen comes up at me and kind of pins me against the wall, and that was really fun to play against,
Oh yeah, for sure.
It was always like, what?
Yeah, and when they're towering over you like that, when you flap back on the couch, I don't think it's difficult to kind of play.
Yeah. Just hold that thought. We're coming right back.
Hey, this is Richard Spate. You know what? It's 2024. It's a brand new year, and I bet you made some New Year's resolutions, and I bet one of them was to eat healthier. Well, you can get cranking on that resolution right now, my friend, with Factor. Factor's ready-to-eat meal delivery takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success in the new year. Skip the grocery stores, the prep work, the cooking fatigue. I'm getting tired just talking about it. Instead, get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. With over 35 meals to choose from per week, including options like keto, calorie smart, vegan, and veggie, and more, plus over 55 weekly add-ons, you will have a ton of nutritious and flavorful options to kickstart this resolution off right. Forget frantic lunch prep and rush dinner making. That stinks. Factor's 2-minute meals, yes, I said 2 minutes, are your secret weapon in the new year. You get to fuel up fast with restaurant-quality meals all delivered right to your door. It doesn't get any easier than that. And Factor now offers loads of snack options like breakfast, smoothies, juices, snacks, and more to keep you going no matter what's on the schedule. So I know what you're asking. Rich, how do I tap into this Factor magic? You head to factormeals.com/SPNTAN50 and use code SPNTAN50 to get 50% off. That's a lot off. That's code SPNTAN50 at factormeals.com/SPNTAN50 for 50% off. Make that resolution happen now and make it happen at a discount. Fantastic food that's healthy and delicious and delivered right to my door. Now that is how you start the new year off right.
Thanks for listening, everybody. And now back to the episode.
Robbie, did you know Jared or Jensen before this?
No, I'd never met them before. I'd done a lot of work on the WB, which is what became the CW, but never with them. No. So, and right away, they were just like everyone says, they were so lovely and they, including me in their conversations, they weren't like, sometimes you're a guest star on shows and there's like an inner circle that you just can't penetrate. They were right away like, hey, come here. Hey, I remember specifically they were talking about like cage fighting or whatever that is that, like the fights that they watch, And I remember trying to be cool and be like, oh yeah, sometimes I dabble, yeah, uh-huh. No, I mean, I know a little bit, like I know nothing. I just kind of like to be invited into the conversation. So yeah, but they're great about that.
Aren't you glad that the conversation, they weren't like, hey, come join us, man. We're talking about how shitty the new guest director is.
Yeah, that never happened.
Mike, what a jerk. You're like, gulp, I can't, I want to get fired. So, Mike, at this point you've done 5 episodes, or this is your 5th episode of Supernatural. So, in the terms of TV episodic directing, you were old hat at this point for Supernatural. You knew the crew, you knew the gang, and you knew the tone of the show and the vibe. Did that help you give a new guy like Rob sort of the context of what was going on in not just the show, but also the tenor of the set and the work environment?
I hope so. Yeah. I mean, with anybody, especially a newer actor, it's important to be a source of basically welcoming the actor to the process, and letting them know that they're safe, they feel comfort, and always approaching it with a sense of humor. Don't make anything heavy, and just let them be able to express themselves, in the most natural way they can, and then just pop in there if there's anything off tone. Which you're right. After 5 episodes, there's definitely a tonality to the whole thing. One of the surprising things about Supernatural is how it always seemed to kick into gear right away, because it all started with the guys bringing in the initial tone, and everybody else kind of like, it was like a band. It was like everybody caught the beat and like, okay, I get it. And off we went, Rob was the guest drummer. They pulled out of the crowd and said, "Hey, do you want to come up and start drumming with us?" Little did they know.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. It does feel like that, when it's really working too. It's like you're playing in a band together, and you guess, and you're like, catch the rhythm, catch the beat. Yeah, I remember you were a good resource, and the boys were a good resource, just in terms of going, hey, because you couldn't hop on Netflix and catch up. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, that's true.
And I'm referencing all these things that have already happened. So I had to ask some questions in terms of that,
Do you remember the first thing you shot, Rob?
Yeah, it was when the boys show up at my door and they pull me outside We shot sort of the exterior of like, I opened the door and then we shot me looking into the trunk, that first bit when they find me. But that was my first day.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was on location because it was sort of the exterior of this house.
And I think we shot the interior of that house too, didn't we? I think.
Yeah.
I don't think we built that. So it was,
right, exactly.
Yeah. So that got followed up by some pretty heavy lifting stuff right away, because there's a lot of stuff in the apartment, a lot of revelations, Castiel showing up, Kurt Fuller at the end. So there was a lot done in those first few days.
Yeah, sure. a lot in that house.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. It's an interesting balance, Rob, that you had to strike. And Mike, it sounds like you have a comedy background as well. So, obviously Supernatural leans heavily on drama, but there's a lot of comedy that plays, especially when you have people who can do it. Rob can do it, and Jared and Jensen can do it. But there is sort of a fine line in making sure that what's a drama doesn't become a comedy. Mm-hmm. How mindful, and I guess this is more for you, Mike, how mindful did you need to be? Like, did the yes ending ever go off the rails too much, where you're like, hey, let's not forget that we're actually trying to drive this drama home? Or did you feel like they were able to sort of balance both well?
I don't remember anything like that, because I think everybody was like, the comedy's fun, but the pathos and humor is a beautiful balance. And I think everybody was definitely aware of the stakes of the whole thing. And, it naturally fell into, digging into those drama moments. And the comedy just, it showed up naturally. And I think we instinctually knew when it should show up. And it's usually the transitional scenes and something a little lighter, some of the action. But when the heavy stuff came in, it was obvious, when it needed to be real. And then, we sort of danced the line a little bit, danced the little line, but it works, when Chuck comes running in at the very end, when, the Archangel's going to come up and, makes this stand. It's pretty funny, but also dramatic at the same time. So that's Supernatural, that's where it gets. And that show digs into some really emotional stuff, as well. So, that's just the balancing act that you have.
Yeah. I really think that's probably one of the reasons I got the role, because that's something that I do often. I a lot of times I'll find myself playing the funny character in a drama, but striking that balance, I think, is important. And, I'd like to think that that's something I did pretty well. And that's, in terms of in the world of Supernatural. So
I think what really worked for you is the choices you made around, the old term. It was like a guy with a handicap,
right?
Trying to make it through life, where he just, he doesn't even know that he's a prophet of God, and eventually bigger things even happen. Right. And how that affliction, or however you want to define it, gift, affliction, how it physically shows up. The pain, the choices you made around the mania around it, the dreaming, it was very convincing. You were able to do that. And that's you, those choices, that's where the dramatic seriousness comes in, and that's cleanses the palate. So when comedy shows up, it's.
And so this episode deals a lot with fandom. And I think first time the show ever dealt with fandom, I'm betting not a lot of shows in general had dealt with fandom, only because fandom was sort of a newly recognized as a global phenomenon, not just a sort of corner of a convention hall for Trek fans. It was becoming a bigger deal at this point, and more accepted and more prevalent. Again, talk about fine lines. It's a fine line between having fun with and making fun of, right? You don't want to make fun of, but you want to have fun with. How aware of that balance did you need to be during this process, Mike?
It was very much front of mind. As I recall, when we all read the script, there was like an explosion of enthusiasm. Like, what? We're doing this? We're actually doing this. The whole idea of LARPing and role-playing, and the genius idea of making the characters in these books so they could talk about themselves. They're reading along, making themselves. That was, I guess, the third leg between the drama, comedy, and that meta sort of approach thing that, it was in the writing. The writing was pretty balanced, when it should show up and when it would. It was structurally very, very tight, very, very tight. So the writing of that supported that easily, I thought. And like I said, everybody went bananas over the idea of, we're doing this. This is really cool. And as I recall, I even think one of the references, I think Simpatico was an actual fan name. It was just,
wow.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I believe it was. It was that they were making sort of, or not making fun of, but sort of including in the fun one of the fans, Simpatico, who I guess was a pretty dedicated fan.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I always thought that the writers were lampooning themselves first and foremost, and I what was fun, I think, about this character in season 4 and 5 is I got to be the mouthpiece for the writers, sort of, you know what I mean? Sort of talking to the fans, apologizing for bad episodes. And,
it's hilarious. Yeah, it's true. It's true. Even Keegan's character, what was her name? Forget the character. Sarah Siege is based. They told me it was based on Sarah Gamble. That's Sarah Gamble. Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
and Julie Siege, the other writer.
Yeah, they used to refer to
names.
Refer to the guys as the boys, and she does in the show. So there's these little tiny Easter eggs and hidden things all through that are really cool.
It's such a smart episode. What Supernatural does well is when they do lean into doing anything that's meta or comedic, it's always elevated. It's always well done. It's it works. And it'd be so easy to have these not work because you could go with low hanging fruit and they don't. It's always elevated in a way that is smart. The jokes are clever, if that makes sense. The situations are clever. And you guys both did a good job of recognizing that and playing within that playground.
It was an interesting time too, because what you said earlier, Rich, we weren't as aware of the fandom, and the connection hadn't been made as much or acknowledged as much. We're just starting to do conventions at this point. But I remember on set, Misha reading Twitter and explaining Twitter to me that after an episode airs, you can actually go on Twitter and see what people thought of it. Because I remember thinking, am I going to be back? And, he was like, it depends if people like you or not. You know what I mean? And he was looking to see comments of an episode of his that had just aired. And that was a new thing for us, And I think this episode kind of reflects that. It really is. This was a chance for the writers to reach out to the audience and go, hey, I'm sorry for the episode bugs. I can't believe I put you through that. That whole thing. Yeah. It was kind of a new idea in general, and that well illustrated.
But even you doing that, Rob, like you obviously somebody had to bring you up to speed on what that reference was. I assume, right? Because you didn't know.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I had to find all that out.
It's funny to look back on it now and realize how much access you have to all the intel you ever needed about the show. Yeah. At the time, you didn't. So you're making these jokes, and people are like, I love that joke. And you're like, good, because I was kind of throwing a dart without knowing where the dartboard was on that one.
Yeah. It's really interesting watching it now, knowing everything we know, and going back and like, wow, I understand that now so much more than when I was saying those words. But
yeah, and I think that I think it's hard for people to go back in the time machine and think about how disconnected fans were from shows then. Because I saw this show when it came out, or around then. So I'm not referencing rewatching it for this interview. I'm talking about decades ago watching it, and I had no idea what LARPing was. That joke worked on me like Sam and Dean, because I had no reference for what they were talking about. Or conventions. I'm trying to remember, had we done conventions yet? I don't think we had. Or if we had.
I had. Yeah. Someone might have.
Well, obviously, yeah, I guess. Yeah, so all of it was so new. Yeah. It was just a real trip to think about. Now we think nothing of going into a convention hall of 1,500 people all dressed like Sam, Dean, and Castiel. But at the time, that idea was completely foreign, at least to a lot of us. And I think that makes it a really cool time capsule episode. Again, I know fandoms existed. I'm not saying they didn't, but I do think this show was ahead of the curve in tapping into the power of the fandom and the knowledge of the fandom. All these fans in the show know everything about the characters and know everything, all these details. And it's just fascinating to watch how intelligently Sarah and Julie addressed the fandom of this show. It was really cool.
Very inspired. I do remember, not just around this show, but my whole time there, probably more into like season 3 and 4, that idea that there's people talking about the show and that you did have that access. People would talk about it on the crew for sure. And you could see them sharing, phones and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Not to a huge extent, but enough to go, something's up. This is interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you're right. It was the beginning of a nice evolution.
It was a buzz. Yeah.
Let me ask you this, Mike. Was there anything in the preparation of the episode where you were like, oh, yeah, that joke is skating too close to a maybe not a great idea?
The joking? I would
Or anything, anything where you're looking at like, I don't know, man, I don't know how this is going to play. Was there anything that you sort of had removed or checkmarked in the script or anything like that?
Usually what happens is it becomes some of the technical stuff that you get a little scared of because you want to make sure you spread out your time enough. This is directing from a purely technical point of view, is that you prepare yourself for the story and looking out for the red threads, identifying the red threads so that you can make sure that those are nice and bright and shiny throughout the whole thing. And there's the physical getting it on camera, that you only have so much time, so much money and stuff like that to do it. So for me, we did quite a few physical stuff, like the big ending with the Archangel showing up and how we were going to pull that off in the time we had the fights, all that kind of stuff. That's this sort of one of the traps you could fall in if you spend too much time on that. So, but by then, the crew and the stunt department and the art department have been pretty tight. So we got lucky, but there was a little bit more than usual, I believe, compared to my other episodes that we had to get done there. But it worked out, and we got great special effects crews and VisFX crews back then, and I'm surprised how well the VisFX still hold up after how much we were. They were really good. The VisFX guys on this show, they were cutting edge at the time and came up with a lot of really cool things. So
consistently, every episode, we're surprised by how well they did with that, like how much it holds up,
and how much it holds up. Yeah,
yeah. Something else, Mike, you had to deal with in this episode is you had a lot of. Obviously, Rob became a strong recurring character, but he wasn't at this point. But you had a lot of heavy hitter recurring people. You had Misha Collins, you had Kurt Fuller, you had Catherine Beckner. Like that had to be interesting. And how much intel were you able to get about their storylines before you dove into directing them?
Not a lot, honestly. We had no idea what Zachariah was going to be or do. We just know that there was something, something dark about him.
Yeah,
and he knew a little bit. But it was just that, we didn't go that far into the future, because I think also the writers have a general idea and of the arc of the season and stuff like that. But they're discovering exactly what they do, as they go along. They have a baseline and then they go from there. So not a lot. You sort of learn it as you go, and you get a little bit of information. We have tone meetings. Like Eric would come in and just go, okay, here's your chapter of the novel. This is what we're doing. This is what came before. This is what we're coming up next. So you have to really keep an eye on that flow. And for me, that's about as far as it would go. You coming in to do your chapter of the book.
Yeah.
Well, Rob, you talked about the fan element of this show and how different access to fan response was back then. Did you get any insight into how fans reacted to this episode when it came out? Were you aware?
I think based on what Misha told me, I checked out Twitter after the episode aired. Yeah, I remember in fear looking at what people were going to say, and the response was positive, and it felt good. But that was a first for me. I'd never done that before. I had access to that before. That was a new idea for me, being able to see what the audience reaction was to a TV show. So
I remember getting a call from the producers, and they were very happy because they'd obviously seen all the stats too, which they used to see what the temperature, and they were very, very enthusiastic and happy. So it felt like there was something, a new door was opening up somehow.
Yes. Yeah. But it's weird because you watch the episode now, and at the end of it, it seems obvious that I'll be back. He's the last line of it is him saying, do what you do best, right, or whatever it is. It feels like it to be continued, but at the time, I had no idea if I was coming back or not.
That's crazy.
That's
yeah. And the little did you know.
Yeah.
little did you know you'd be having this conversation
in 2024,
decades later.
That's awesome.
So, favorite scene for either of you or for both of you. So let's start with Mike. You have a favorite scene from this episode, either from a directing standpoint or as a viewer or whatever.
I think, on the very first scene, there's two that are sort of tied. The very first scene when they walk into the comic book store, because it's so unexpected. It's just going to be like the beginning of a new case, and then it turns into the LARPing and the role-playing thing and tying in the book. That is a teaser. I thought it was one of the best teasers they've in the series. It was really, really interesting. And I guess Rob's first scene when they first come into the house, there's some dry, cracked one-liner jokes that are great. The whole discovery of who they are and how much they actually know. That revelation was fun to do. Really, really good. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I love the final scene, I think Catherine does such a great job. This is her first episode, and she has it's a tough thing for her to do. She comes in to play this character, this demon that we've been talking about now for many seasons, and she nails it. She just nails it, and she's so seductive, and you can see why Sam is drawn in. In spite of the fact that my character's prophesied the whole thing, and Sam's going, that would never happen. But you believe that he actually is being seduced by her in that moment. And then me busting in with Dean, and I get to say I'm the prophet Chuck. I love that whole sequence there is well done.
That whole thing is awesome.
Yeah, that burst in is hilarious.
Yeah,
hilarious.
Yeah.
It's It's funny because you don't play it for the joke. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like that's why it works, because it's like it feels true to the character.
Yeah.
It's funny you said it was Catherine's first episode, because I had earlier referenced her about being in the show before, just because my brain gets mixed up because I've seen her in other episodes. But yeah, this is the first time we see her as that character.
Yeah,
she's so good.
So good.
Yeah. She was very sweet. She very sweet. I remember her, reworking it out with the guy with Jared, you know, and discussing kind of like how it'll play out, because it was a big deal scene. I loved her in that, just laying out the rules, that demons actually have rules of conduct. I can't do this, I can't do that. She did a really great job of spelling that out.
Yeah, and I remember running. I think I ran lines with her for that scene. She was really sweet and very open, and we became buddies just in those couple days that I was on set with her. And I know you've seen her at conventions. I don't think I've seen her since.
I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen her at a convention or anywhere. I think I ran into her in LA at some point after the convention run, and she was lovely. And so as we wrap up the episode, Robbie, this is a show that you got. It's a guest star. You're going to go do it, and then you're going to go on your merry way. And obviously, with no idea that it turned into this giant thing. As you reflect back on that first experience, what stands out to you?
Just that I had the feeling that this was something good, that it was a show that felt better than its network, to be honest. It felt like an elevated show it didn't feel like your typical CW show. The writing was elevated, the acting was elevated, the way that Serge shot it. You felt all those things on set. The crew was so great. And it was something I wanted to be a part of. And I was really fingers crossed that they would have me back. I've been in that situation before, and sometimes you get asked back, sometimes you don't. I really just wanted it to work. And, because it said to be continued at the end of the script. Turns out it says that at the end of every Supernatural script. And so, I always thought, ooh, this must mean, but they're like, no, it doesn't necessarily mean anything. So I was just so thankful it worked out. But that was it. I knew it was something special. I did want to come back and be a part of again.
You know what I think?
I know, but the funny thing is you don't know, right? Like, sorry, I'm not going to interrupt, but like as that actor thing, when you feel like you crushed it, you crushed it.
Yeah.
And it's a dangling carrot, and you might be a rope you get to swing on.
Yeah.
So many times they just reel that rope back up into the ceiling and you never get to play again. So it's great that you actually got to continue on. And Mike, what were you saying?
I think the secret sauce of that success of the character was the house coat.
Yes, totally.
I don't know why I keep thinking about it. When I see him in that house coat, it's just like, it's awesome. It just looks so cool.
Yeah. I wish they still had that. I feel like
I think iconic.
I know.
Put it in the Hard Rock Cafe or something.
Yeah.
Well, I got to tell you, there's a lot of fans who dress like that, at the conventions. We see an awful lot of.
True. Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. People cosplay as the first Chuck.
Yeah, honoring early Chuck. In fact, if people are dressing as Chuck,
it's that.
Yeah. Traditionally, it's that sort of first time we see him. Big impact robe.
He's like the Lebowski of Supernatural.
Exactly. Yeah. Totally Lebowski. Absolutely. 100%. I think that might have been what they were going for.
Hilarious.
And Mike, what about you? Final thoughts on this, what literally is one of the more iconic episodes of the series?
Yeah, I think it is definitely one of my favorites, and it always puts a smile on my face when I see it. The process, I think, as I recall, was the most pleasurable, because everything came very naturally, and it was like Rob just said, I felt a little elevated. And that's one of the things about Supernatural is they really know how to mix the supernatural effect with moral messages, and really raising the stakes on those moral messages, lacing it with some comedy, and then bringing in some very, very talented actors. And this is one of the episodes of many, but for me, it's a standout where it all kind of came together and stuff. And, it was a pleasure to work with Rob and I just, again, look what happened. It's so great that this happens.
So
to people.
crazy.
It's really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Well, Rob, you're great in the episode. Obviously, you put your fingerprints on a character that became indelible in the universe of Supernatural and vacillated between comedy and drama for the next 10 years and became a real landmark figure in the show. So well done by you.
Thank you.
And Mike, dude, that's a tough episode. It was an easy one to let too much slack out of the leash, and you did a great job not doing that and keeping the drama front and center while the comedy played out around it. It's a really well done episode from a directorial standpoint. So well done.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I us directors get in the same position as Rob was. It's like, okay, I did the episode. What they can ask me about?
Now what?
And they did, so it must have worked.
And they did. So it was a victory.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for being here, buddy.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you. We'll have you back for another conversation. It's always fun to have you on the show.
Thank you very much, fellas. It's a blast, as always.
Thanks,
Thank
Mike.
you.
Great to see you.
All right. Good to see you, too.
See you, buddy.
Hey there, this is Jensen. I hope you're enjoying the episode, but we need to pull over for a second for some messages, and I gotta take a leak. Thanks for supporting Supernatural then and now. And now, back to the show.
That was great. That was great.
Dude, great. It was great conversation. Fun hearing you guys talk to each other about the episode. And Mike's just a delightful guy, like a big positive energy. I would imagine, I never worked with him as an actor, but he must be fun to work with.
Yeah, he is that. And honestly, it makes sense that he comes from improv because he does have that energy, the yes and energy, where I do remember sort of, crafting little bits like I talked about and him being game for that. And he's great and so positive. Really super guy. It fits right in. It fits right in with the crew of Supernatural.
Yeah, man. He really does.
Well done. Well done. Good interviewing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It was a fun conversation to be a part of, and it's a great episode. So I'm glad we got to dive in and dig deep.
Cool.
It's time for mythology.
Prophecies are messages communicated to a person by a supernatural entity. They are common across cultures and beliefs. They typically...
Are you sure it's pronounced entity? I thought it was entity.
Oh, man. I'm going to have to, cut that out. And
What? I thought, okay, so in your regional pronunciation is some hoity-toity, must be correct kind of way? All right, fine. Lord Benedict. Make fun of the blue-collar people.
Well, prophecies are messages communicated to a person by a supernatural entity.
Malige.
They are common across cultures and beliefs. They typically contain information about future events or divine will.
You say divine? It's not divinity?
Oh, boy.
Here are a few predictions for 2024 from everyone's favorite astrologer, Nostradamus.
Oh, I love his
Number one.
I love his work.
Yeah, he's great, man. He knew we were going to say that, too.
I know.
Number one, climate catastrophes.
Yes.
The dry earth will grow more parched, he goes on to predict. And there will be great floods. And floods that are meh. They're not all great.
Wow. He also predicts a naval confrontation with China. Now, this is for real, about 2024. So he sat down and was like...
He means two nations going belly button to belly button. I don't think it's about ships.
Oh, naval confrontation. Got it.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
That is often misconstrued.
Okay.
Prince Harry will replace King Charles III as King of the United Kingdom.
Wait, how did he know
that's obvious
that Prince Harry was a person? I don't get it.
I guess Nostradamus is a big fan of the royals.
But how did Nostradamus didn't know there was going to be a Prince Harry? What is this coming from?
Not only that, he knew what was going to happen in season 4 of The Crown.
That's true.
He literally is on it.
Well, he's a big Crown fan. He also predicted in 2024 a new pope. A new pope.
Which he thought was going to be a Star Wars movie.
Exactly.
Episode 4, A New Pope.
A new pope.
He misread his prediction.
Yeah. And just following up on his predictions.
This is not the papal visit you're looking for.
Talk about the force be with you. He also predicted World War III would happen in 2023. So.
Well, suck it, Nostradamus. You missed that one. It's not happening until later this year.
Yeah. Oh, boy. That's kind of scary. Those are scary. That put me in a down mood. I'm scared.
Yeah. Nothing like Nostradamus. That's why Nostradamus didn't get invited to a lot of mixers.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
We'll get Perseus over and maybe Helios and some of the guys.
Sure.
Should we get Quintus, his buddy Nostradamus?
Quintus is kind of an asshole. We don't want him.
Yeah, and he breathed the Nostradamus who always predicts we'll run out of wine. We got that part, Nostro.
And then he throws out all the wine. What? What do you mean? We ran out.
Your bottomless wine flask you seem to bring with you.
All right, well, that's it from Nostradamus, or as Rich likes to say, Nostradamus.
Robbie. Risque.
Just because you're mispronouncing everything.
Ladies and gentlemen, well, it's now time for a segment we call Fun Facts. Fun Facts, Fun Facts, Fun Facts, Fun Facts.
The title comes from the Sesame Street book, There's a Monster at the End of the Book. In it, Grover is trying to stop the reader from getting to the end of the book because there's a monster. At the end of the book, it is revealed that Grover was the monster all along.
Wow, that's philosophically heavy. We are all a monster. We are all, Grover.
Yeah.
The nitty gritty of it all.
And again, great title for this episode because it's a very meta. The book is meta. The episode is very meta.
And I think that's where you meta Kurt Fuller and you meta Jared Jensen.
Yeah.
And you
meta,
probably meta Catherine Beckner.
I meta.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I met a lot of those people for the first time.
You met all the cast and the crew.
It's true.
Yeah, that's a really, really makes you think, the whole Grover thing. Man. Because the whole time he thinks he's warning you about something, but it's really himself.
It's himself.
Wow.
Yeah. It's pretty deep.
Wow, man.
Okay, well, let's move on to the next fun fact.
I don't know, man. I don't know if I can. You know what's interesting? That there's a monster named after early President Grover Cleveland. I think that's an interesting little tidbit that can get discussed in the fun facts here.
Yeah. Just like I named my son after Calvin Coolidge.
I know, which is so neat.
Yeah, a lot of
cool
fans.
You did that.
Yeah, a lot of fans of those presidents.
The boys use the aliases of Agents DeYoung and Shaw. Dennis DeYoung and Tommy Shaw are members of the rock band Styx. Dennis DeYoung, the actual founding member of the band.
Yeah.
And I think they eventually kicked Dennis DeYoung out, and now they're touring without him. So there you go.
Really? But Tommy Shaw still tours.
So as far as I know, yeah.
I always liked Tommy Shaw. I thought he was really cool looking when I was younger.
Oh, man, I liked Styx in general. Like Renegade. Oh, mama, I've been fearful. My life from long arm of the law. Doom, doom, doom.
Yeah, and that song was used in this show, so that's another fun fact within a fun fact.
Yeah, you didn't take it when I allowed it to you, but yeah, you're right.
Well, just because I wanted to stay on course, I feel like we really went off course with Monster.
God, you and the course bit, you and Grover.
Speaking of courses, the diner in which Dean and Sam eat and discuss in the middle of the episode is called Kripke's Hollow Diner.
Where'd they come up with hollow? Is that the fun fact?
Like Kripke's Hollow?
Oh, Kripke's, I get it. Yeah. I didn't miss the Kripke reference.
Like Kripke's Hollow?
Right. And I don't think Kripke's hollow. I think he's full of ideas and a wonderful man. But I guess somebody didn't think so because Jerry Wannick wanted to take a dig. You know what I
mean? Yeah.
Though the character's name isn't mentioned in the episode, the publisher that Sam and Dean question is named Sarah Sage. A combo of Sarah Gamble and Julie Sage's names.
Yeah,
is that how you say
I don't know if we're saying that right, but yeah, Sage.
Yeah.
And it should be mentioned because it's not here that Chuck's pen name Carver Edlund is a combination of Jeremy Carver and Ben Edlund, the writers from the show. They just
genius.
Put that together. Yeah.
And little fun fact: a lot of people don't know this. The ripped torsos on the cover of the books were modeled after my torso. Yeah. They did a little had me send a few pics of my ripped torso so they could model the ripped torsos after my ripped torso.
And here's a fun fact.
That was nice so much.
It's great. And you look awesome. You really look great.
Thank you, buddy.
Fun fact, I asked if I could have one of those posters and take it home with me because it was still, they were up in season 15 in Chuck's superfan's house. Becky's house, and the answer came back, no, you cannot. So that was exciting.
Here's a fun fact. I actually have one of those posters. They were gracious enough to
that's funny
to gift me one at the end of the series.
One of the posters at Chuck's house is from the cover of the third issue of the Supernatural Origins comic books, which chronicled the story of John Winchester's early days on the road with Sam and Dean. They were really great, all those posters.
Yeah, they were amazing.
There was one that was the Benders had one, and Scarecrow had one. A lot of them were the episodes we've already seen from like season 1.
Yeah, there was one of those, and I don't remember which one, but it had a kind of a sketch of. I remember it had a sketch of Bobby Singer on it that hung in the conference room of the Supernatural production office.
Oh, really? That's funny.
Yeah, and I don't remember which one it was, but they had taken one of those. The art in that office was, episode art that they sort of just gleaned over the years, and it was one of those.
Huh. Well, and thankfully for me, this is one of the only of a few episodes where nobody dies.
That is an upbeat end to an intense episode, and a good, nice piece of trivia.
Great episode, super fun to...
Classic episode, Robbie. You crushed it. You did a great job. And obviously it led to decades of... we're still talking about the show with you on it. So it led to decades of work as that character. So good job. Kudos.
Yeah. Little did I know that this would kind of change my trajectory a bit.
Dancing girl in Hoboken when the phone rang, and now here you are.
That's right. I had a... Yep, that's right. Just a dancing girl in Hoboken, working for pennies for dollars from all the gentlemen callers. Thank you for indulging me for this episode. I feel like it was my birthday a little bit.
In a way it was, only with no party thrown by you for us, because shouldn't you be throwing us a party? Really?
Well, yeah, I usually throw myself a party when I need to be celebrated.
Exactly.
All right, well done. And until the next time.
Well done you, Rob. Well done you.
Thank you. Until we meet again. This episode of Supernatural features Jared Padalecki as Sam Winchester, Jensen Ackles as Dean Winchester, and Misha Collins as Castiel.
Guest stars included Rob Benedict, Kurt Fuller, Catherine Beckner, and Keegan Connor Tracy.
Monster at the End of this book was written by Julie Siege and Nancy Weiner. Directed by Mike Rohl.
Editing by Nicole Baer. Music by Christopher Leonards.
Executive produced by Eric Kripke and Robert Singer.
This episode originally aired on April 2nd, 2009.
This episode of Supernatural Then and Now was hosted and executive produced by Richard Speight Jr. and Rob Benedict.
Produced by Stephen Hine. Written by Stephen Hine and Haida Holscher.
And edited and associate produced by Trey Booty.
What is up, Booty?
Music provided by Tim Wynn.
The episode was recorded with the help of Sonic Fuel Studios.
This podcast is from Story Mill Media.
Follow the podcast on Instagram and Twitter at SPN Then and Now.
And become a member of the podcast at worldwideweb.patreon.com/SPN Then and Now. That's World Wide Web.
Go ahead.
Or www for short. .patreon.com/SPN Then and Now.
Here are a few predictions for 2024 from everyone's favorite astrologer, Nostradamus. I thought I said anus. Nice try, Steve.
Steve just texted us dick pics, which...
Yeah, I know, and I said no thanks. I'm not sure.
I thought that was an odd time to ask for them, but I can only assume he's referring to when you're talking about you being the model for the cover of the Supernatural books.
Ah, I see.
Right.
Did you figure that out after you obliged with that black and white shot of your
unfortunately,
Johnson?
I've already sent him on a separate chat. I sent him mine, but because I've got that right here on my hard drive ready to go.
Story Mill Media.